The housing market has changed and there's no hope for affordability. I don't want to say no hope, but sometimes it feels that way. We're going to talk about that today. First, I want to jump into some economic news that we have because last week we got the jobs report and it came in hotter than expected. This article here is saying hot jobs report could cause the Fed to delay rate cuts. Wonderful. The employment growth in March exceeded all expectations. Non-farm payroll increased by 303,000 in March, beating expectations of 215,000 and exceeding the previous month's increase of 275,000. So usually when we see these reports come out that are very different than expectations, they have the ability to really move mortgage rates, usually making them go higher. And so this is talking about, there's a few different sectors where we're seeing a lot of job growth: government, healthcare, and education. But for home buyers and sellers, this points to higher mortgage rates for longer. And that's not really the news that most of us want to hear. So let's see what happened with mortgage rates. Surprisingly steady despite strong jobs report. So Mortgage News Daily is saying that when job growth is higher than expected, the default reaction is for rates to move higher. And they did not see that last week. So that's kind of good news. Things were somewhat stable. But they are saying that this week we are going to get the CPI, Consumer Price Index. And so depending on what that says, it will have the ability to move rates one way or the other. So as I always say, if you're out there as a home buyer right now working with a lender, just make sure you check in with them just in case this changes significantly, what rate you're able to get, which could change your payment. So let's talk about the housing market and how things are not what they used to be. That forever home, the American dream, all of those things that people talk about. We've got this baby boomer scenario going on. This is talking about how 3/4 of baby boomers plan to stay in their home as they grow older. And the problem with this is that they are locking up a lot of inventory. There are a lot of baby boomers, and they're saying that 71% plan to age in place in their home. 16% move to a 55 plus community, 8% moving in with adult or younger children, 9% moving to an assisted living, 4% moving in with a group of friends. So they surveyed baby boomers to find out what their plans are, and a lot of them want to age in place, and that contributes to the housing shortage. We already have a challenge where there is no incentive for sellers to sell unless they have a major change in their life. There really isn't a whole lot of trading properties right now just because you may have some desire to have something bigger or different or more modern or smaller, whatever it is, because you don't want to give up that mortgage rate. And I don't blame anyone for that, but it has locked up a lot of inventory. And then layer on top of that, a huge generation that would typically move out of their homes and open up some of that inventory. They're not doing that. And it's because it makes financial sense for them to stay in their homes. A lot of them have no mortgage on their home, 54%. And the ones that do have a mortgage nearly all have a much lower interest rate than they would if they sold and bought a new home. Also, when you're retired and you don't have a steady flow of income from a job, it's a little bit scary to take on a mortgage. Many don't do that if they don't have to. And so it's making more financial sense for them to age in place. And it's really keeping this inventory problem that we have across the country, keeping that low. Now, a lot of people have theorized that there is this silver tsunami coming, and I've done a video on this in the past. And what that means is that all the baby boomers are going to die and their inventory is going to be opened up to everyone else. And so I don't know that I believe that this is going to be that direct of a result. And I've said that before, and I did see this article that I thought was interesting because they're giving some argument against that, what will likely happen. So they say that when boomers move out of their large houses, they're not selling, they're tapping into their equity to buy rent property, renting out their current home. So that's what we just talked about. So there isn't this silver tsunami just because they're aging. Unlike the dinosaurs, boomers won't die off all at once. And I've had that thought too, because a lot of these arguments just say, once they die, these homes are going to come up for sale. And it's like, well, that's not going to happen overnight. So it may be a gradual, trickle of some properties coming on the market from them, but it's not all going to happen at once. Boomers will be a source of future inventory, but don't expect a tsunami. So that's basically what I just said. There's going to be some increase in listings from boomers, but it's not going to be a tsunami. And then they say the overall inventory will not loosen up until rates drop around 5.5%. And so that's going back to the survey that I was just talking about, where boomers are saying, they have a low mortgage rate. They don't want to try to take on a new mortgage at a higher rate, just like everyone else. So I think that's true until we see rates go below 6%. I don't know that we're going to see a ton of activity in the housing market as it was, years ago, even before the pandemic. So let's talk a little bit more about some lovely news. Say farewell to the forever home. I'm full of good news, you guys. But this is an interesting article, and I wanted to break it down because it talks about the average income required to purchase a home was $59,000 in 2020. And that wasn't that long ago. We all remember the pandemic like it was yesterday. The income you need now is about $106,500, even to get your foot in the door in most markets. And currently the American salary on average is about $59,428. So of course, every market is different. And in the Phoenix area, our average income is a little bit higher. But last time I checked, the income you need to purchase the median price home here is over $100,000. And so things have just drastically changed in such a short period of time. Combining that with the fact that, we have a whole generation of folks that aren't planning to let go of their home. We have plenty of people who own homes, regardless of their age, with a low mortgage rate and aren't interested in trading that. And we have building that is happening, but not really keeping up. It's just got us locked into this position where there's not a whole lot of inventory out there, which is keeping prices high. And then we have mortgage rates that aren't coming down either. And that makes it pretty unaffordable, especially for a first-time home buyer, to try to find a property that, they live in, that they enjoy, that's safe, that meets their needs, and that they can also afford. So all in all, with all of this great news, I don't mean to be depressing, but, it's just the housing market has changed. It's not what it used to be. And this article talks a little bit about that, like, dream of a forever home, and how, people used to have a starter home and then they'd get to their forever home. And it's just talking about how that there's more of a barrier there to have that kind of success in the housing market right now. So if you're a first-time home buyer, I do have good news. Here are the 10 best markets for first-time home buyers. The bad news is they're not in Phoenix. So if you were hoping to buy in Arizona, I don't know, maybe consider some relocation. St. Louis, Missouri, Detroit, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota. With all of these, they took a few different points. So that's what they're talking about with this 1, 2, 3, 4. Home buying age households as a share of the total households, the percentage of median household income spent on rent. So they're trying to measure the amount you can really save if you're renting before buying. Affordable listings as a percent of total for sale inventory, affordable listings to renter household ratio. So they looked at those factors in order to determine this list. Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, which is surprising because it had been quite expensive. But I think there's been some changing there. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, San Antonio, Texas, Birmingham, Alabama, Kansas City, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland. So not bad choices. There's some great places to live, but do me a favor, put it in the comments. Where would you move as a first-time home buyer? If it's not on this list, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So let's talk about what's going on in Phoenix. We're going to jump over to the Cromford Report. And by the way, if any of this is helpful, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing. Would love for you to be part of our community. So the Cromford Market Index, if you're new here, this is the Cromford Report, which I follow. This index tells us what's going on in the market as far as supply and demand is concerned. And that is what helps us predict where prices are going or whether there will be appreciation. And so the way that this is set up is any number over 110 is a seller's market. This has been going down week over week, very slowly, but it has been going down. So technically, we are in a seller's market all across the valley, but it is very weak. And I'll get to the next tab here where I'm showing every city across the valley, because don't be fooled. There are some cities that are truly seller's markets and there's a lot going on there. So it's across the board, just a little bit more mild. Demand 79.5, and so that is about 21% below normal. Supply is 71, that's about 29% below normal. So both supply and demand are below normal, with supply being lower than demand. And, again, just another reflection of the inventory challenges that we are seeing everywhere, not just here. So let's look at these city by city. Chandler is in a seller's market, 211. So remember, anything over 110. Gilbert is also strong, although month over month it came down and softened just a little bit, 1%. Glendale also in a seller's market, 172. Tempe, 158. These cities, as you go down the list, it gets a little bit weaker and weaker of a seller's market, but still that's where those are at. Then you get to Surprise, Paradise Valley, Cave Creek. All of those are in balanced markets. And then Queen Creek, Goodyear, Maricopa, and Buckeye all in buyer's markets. Now these green and red arrows are showing the change month over month, whether they moved in the direction of a seller's market or moved in the direction of a buyer's market. Chandler gained some ground further into a seller's market, and that's a pretty strong market. There's limited inventory there, a lot of demand. So Chandler, if you are a seller there, good for you, because you have a great advantage right now. And if you're a buyer in Chandler, be ready to be competitive in your offer if you find something that you like. Now, overall, the change of all of these cities month over month is 0%. So we have not seen much change at all. The last week when we looked month over month, it was 0.4%. So we've actually gone down when we look month over month, just the slightest bit overall, but nothing too drastic. So throughout the valley, we have overall 10 out of 17 cities that are still in sellers markets. And Peoria is just on the cusp here, so that will likely drop to being 9 sellers markets, and Peoria will go into balanced markets. We have 3 cities that are balanced and 4 that are buyers markets currently. So if you want to know some specific information about your home, make sure to send me a message on that. You can get an instant home value at the link below. And if you're planning to buy a home and you don't want to use an agent, make sure to check out this video where I give you all the secrets on how to do that.